Welcome to the Cause and Brew Show!
Yeah!
What's up, brother Cause?
Oh man, I'm living the life, living in the lap of luxury, all that good stuff.
Yeah? How's that work? You have your own like nacho fountain of cheese where you could just go get nacho cheese whenever you want?
Even better, I'm sitting here on a Petaluma day. It's overcast, it's rainy, showers, but I might as well be on a beautiful tropical beach because I'm sipping on my Kona coffee.
Look at you. That's an excellent lead-in to our sponsor of the show, Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. I don't get it today because my Keurig machine died yesterday.
Oh,
yes.
Oh.
You don't know what bad coffee is until you get to Starbucks. And you have some Starbucks. I'm not kidding. They just burn it. It's the Christmas blend. It's not even Christmassy. And I have not had enough of it. I'm just dying over here cause I can't live without my Hawaiian Isles Kona coffee. It's bad, but they're the sponsors of the show. But they got the coffee to you, eh?
Oh yeah, loving every second of it. I gotta figure out. It's awesome. It's so good. It's just such a good coffee, and I'm not a huge coffee flavor guy. I'm more of like just mainline my caffeine for me kind of coffee drinker. But this is clearly a step above a lot of coffee. So
it's a good flavored coffee. Are you having the vanilla macadamia? Is that what?
I'm just having the straight classic. I haven't busted the macadamia open yet, but I will. I'm just having just a classic blend.
I don't really do the flavored coffees, but I'll do theirs, and that's our favorite over here in the Brewski household. So it's good, man. Hey, it's been a couple weeks. How you been?
Yes. Just getting ready to do this Christmas thing. What do we got planned? We're gonna be strolling to my in-laws and staying there a couple of nights, and it'll be good. Kids, my sister-in-law, Caitlin, is a big Christmas crazy person. So I believe she has in their home there are 3 strategically placed trees. She has rented an elf for Christmas Eve that will be roaming around.
Wait. You can't gloss over. She's rented an elf,
yes,
an actual. Did she find a little person, or is it like a full size elf? I
haven't inquired. I'm gonna just let the surprise happen. I don't know.
Is this an actor getting paid, or is this just?
I assume something like that. I don't know if there's a underground, black market for elves that are, if we find out that there's these elves being trafficked.
Are you guys gonna end up on Dateline NBC as the family that rented an elf?
Possibly.
3 trees. Somebody, I forget who did that. The people are doing that now. People gotta outdo each other now, and it's not enough to have 1 tree. You gotta have 3 now.
Now, for her defense, she has always been this way. She is a Christmas weirdo purist. So,
purist. So she's got things to say.
I will give her. She is not, following trends. She is at the forefront of these movements, I'm sure.
As a Christmas purist, do you think she's upset with the pre-Thanksgiving Christmas rollout? Does it all have to be condensed in the post-Thanksgiving time frame?
I would assume so. I would assume that
seems like a purist position to me.
Yeah, I would assume that she is one that believes that you do not begin the Christmas rollout until the day after Thanksgiving, but you do start it that day. You do not wait. I would assume that that's her position, but I have to check.
Yeah, we made the mistake. We got lazy and we did not do the post-Thanksgiving Christmas tree run, and that has resulted in our Christmas tree being pretty much ass. It's really nice, don't get me wrong, but it's not up to my wife's standards, and that's because we didn't go on the weekend right after Thanksgiving, which you got to do Because otherwise, you put the thing up, it's up for a week, and then you leave it up for a week, or, well, actually, in our case, we leave it up for like a month after Christmas. But it's just really bad timing. Anyway, I hope you all...
We leave it up we wait until the Boy Scouts, whenever their last day of coming around and grabbing them, is that they were like, oh my God, we got to put it out there tomorrow. The Boy Scouts are coming. Because we do not dispose of it ourselves.
Yeah, no, the city comes and picks up ours. We don't have a wandering pack of Boy Scouts that pick up the Christmas trees.
What's wrong with Sacramento?
What's wrong with my old hometown of Petaluma? You guys have elves running around Christmas parties, and you have the Boy Scouts picking up Christmas trees. Congrats to you guys.
She's not in Petaluma. She's down in like Manteca, a town called Ripon, California. What's up? Where you at?
Nice. Well, Merry Christmas to everybody who celebrates Christmas out there. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. I don't know a lot about Kwanzaa. Dan Besperis over here is my first Jewish friend. And it's like amazing to me that I've gone through life. I don't have any other Jewish friends. So I'm learning about...
No one can say you're racist because you have a Jewish friend. You could always throw that out there.
Everybody loves that one. That's a go-to. That's for sure. So it's good time for people to get together, have fun, drink a little bit too much eggnog, and talk some NBA, where we have 14 of 15 teams in the West that are basically in the playoff chase, separated by like 3 games, it feels like. In the East, we have Toronto pretty much, running Kawhi Leonard out there and, being the Terminator and all, and nobody seems to be able to feel like they could beat them. But, they do have Philly just 3 games back, which is pretty surprising to me given kind of what they've been through in the offseason and, all the trash we've talked here on this show. You got the trade for Jimmy Butler, but they're right in the mix. Boston's, probably I think 6 or 7 right now. So they're not where they should be. But, you got some interesting basketball going on. Golden State does not appear to be the prohibitive favorite that everybody thought they were at the beginning of the year, though they'll be getting DeMarcus Cousins back here shortly, and they'll be doing their thing sooner rather than later. But Denver is on top of the West, despite having half their team injured. So it is pretty interesting times in the NBA. And we're going to start with the Rockets, though. They played last night, and they lost. And they also lost Chris Paul. And they continue to underwhelm. And, now that Chris Paul might be on the shelf with a hamstring injury for, I don't know, a week or 2, it doesn't seem like it's overly serious. It sounds kind of like your garden run-of-the-mill Chris Paul hamstring injury. But they are paper thin. They need a player, and there's a guy named Austin Rivers, who's Chris Paul's favorite player, who's available now. And, I mean, the Rockets got to make a move. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is out there. Not quite sure how much the Lakers want to help the Rockets right now. And that's kind of the story with this Western Conference playoff picture is you got all these teams that think they can make the playoffs now. So nobody wants to trade. But, Austin Rivers, I mean, you almost got to do that, right? Question mark?
No, I don't think they have a choice because what really bothers me, Chris Paul has a pretty extensive injury history, particularly, with the hamstrings as well. And what really bothers me about this one, one, his age and recovery time, and 2, it happening again. And 3, what really should scare people in Houston is, Chris Paul, even when he was young, has never been a guy that's just going to blow you away with explosive first steps. He's always been, even when he was young and quicker, he's always been a very controlled point guard, great footwork, great handle, those big, those herky-jerky movements with his, shoulders and ball fakes and whatnot. And so the fact that he keeps on hurting his hamstring, not even moves, it's not even, it's not like he really had to really dug into blow by somebody or something like that, because he doesn't really do that anymore, even when he's going by people. So it just leads me to think, and having hurt my hamstring, this is going to linger and linger and linger. And they can't really afford to have a 75% Chris Paul for a large period of time.
Or the rest of his contract. I mean,
or they're not. Luckily, they got him on a deal, so he's not making that much money over the next 4 years.
Yeah, no. For next season, get this: he's going to make $38.5 million. The following season, $41.4 million, and it. 2021-22, he's got a player option for $44 million. He might not, it's conceivable that Chris Paul in that season can't even stay on the floor. I don't want to say it because you predict it and then he's out there and you just look dumb, but he looks bad out there right now, and I don't know, he looks a little fat.
I'm sure and that's the thing, when you're getting up there, you have to actually work out harder, and have to be everything on top of your diet, and everything has to be so pristine and on top of everything. And a hamstring injury, especially late in the season, I'm sure he took the time to really make sure that it was 100% before he got into his routine, and then as the season goes on, it's kind of hard. It's easy for a 24-year-old to come in out of shape and play himself into shape during the season. But when you're at Chris Paul's age and you're trying to avoid further injury, you can't really just, I was watching Draymond Green the other day in his first game, and there were times where he was just sprinting down the court for no reason, because he was like, I'm just going to get my wind back, and I'm just going to just sprint it out for these next 3 minutes, even if I don't have to. Well, Chris Paul can't do that. If he does that, he's going back to the training room. So they're in some trouble.
Well, and it just kind of makes you wonder, kind of all these little what ifs. Like, what if you could have gotten Jimmy Butler? What if you could get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from the Lakers? Because really, the Butler thing is, that's pie in the sky thinking. And, frankly, Minnesota, they did well on their trade so far in the short term. But I'm not convinced that the first rounders wouldn't have been a good route for them. So you don't get that deal. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, though, to me, is a guy that the Lakers don't want, would come cheap. He can play 30 minutes a game. He's kind of perfect for Houston in that he'll defend, he can shoot the three, and that would have been, to me, that's a great play for if you're Houston to try to get through this. But that's probably not going to happen, because there is a guy, Austin Rivers, who you can just sign, for cheap.
Yeah.
And now you got sort of the same problem you had at the beginning of the year. Is you've got three guys, in Eric Gordon, Paul, and James Harden, who need the ball in their hands. And now you need to add a fourth, with Austin Rivers. Right. It's not ideal. Yeah. And Chris Paul probably wants to kick his ass. I mean...
Right.
Which is funny, because, sometimes when players need each other, that can actually cut through some of that BS, and who knows how much of that BS was related to Blake and Doc Rivers and just that cesspool of whatever you want to call that in Clipperland. But the Rockets currently sit at 16-15. They're in the 8th slot, which doesn't mean much, because the Timberwolves are in the 14 slot, and they're 7.5 back, and the Rockets are 5.5 back. That's how tight it is right now. And the 4 seed Lakers, your Lakers, they're 3.5 up. So 4 through 14 in the West is separated by 4 games right now. So that's phenomenal. And speaks to what's going on over there in the East. In fact, let's just go out East so we keep this thing moving here. Or pardon me, no, wrong. Ha, I need more coffee. Let's talk quickly about Denver before we go out East, because they're out there with their first unit, consisting of guys like Juancho Hernan-Gomez. They're bringing Mason Plumlee into the first unit. They're starting Torrey Craig. They're down Gary Harris with a hip injury. He's probably about a week. Maybe he could be day to day. Who knows? They got Will Barton, who's probably back within the next 1 to 2 weeks. They just lost Paul Millsap, and he's probably back in about, if I had to guess, 3 weeks. So they're running out their B unit, and the fun hip graphic during games is to show all their bench players and present them as a starting lineup, and say, could they also be competing in the West? You know me, I'm a big Michael Malone guy. I thought it was ridiculous when people in Denver were trying to bury the guy. You don't hear them anymore.
Right.
Funny how that works. And he's got these guys playing defense, and that's probably and it also speaks to when you do lose players, guys that step into those minutes, they're playing their balls off. They want to show what they can do. You got a guy in Monty Morris that he's going to have the best assist to turnover record or ratio for the last 20 years. And he'll qualify because of how much he's going to play. And it's going to be up in the 6 to 7 range. He just doesn't turn it over. And he's out there playing hard. People are basically kind of already preempting the Isaiah Thomas return, saying they don't want Monty Morris to lose his minutes, and they're probably going to give them both 20 minutes and present a good little balance there of scoring and defensive and overall play. They just keep winning. They're 21-9 right now. The Warriors, it always comes back to the Warriors. You got a guy in Nikola Jokic who can do a lot of things. People are talking about him as an MVP candidate. I'm not ready to go there. Defense is half the game, and so I'm not quite sure he's up at that level. He's having a great statistical season. He's running that offense to perfection. He's classic Nikola Jokic, but can he hang with the Warriors in a playoff series? That's my biggest question.
Well, I'm interested in how they're. I'm interested in the mix when Isaiah comes back. That's going to be how he handles this. I think it's going to be very key to their future success. As far as the Warriors go, I'm not. If I'm the Warriors, I'm not worried about them. Now that could work to Denver's favor. We're still really far out from that. I do think that they have, he's got them playing defense, but there's not a lot of defensive guys. But they do have some length, and they have some guys that, as they're committed right now, can play pretty well. So the Warriors should not take them lightly by any stretch. But I just think that as far as being able to progress through a playoff series and beat a team that's been in the finals this many times when you haven't even smelled the playoffs, in quite some time, I think that's a bit of a stretch. But I think they can get 2 games from them, The problem is I don't know if it's already going to be a 3-0 lead when they do. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's really just the Warriors come in with, as Goliath. Nobody feels like they can be beaten. They've got a Goliath coming back in DeMarcus Cousins. But all that stuff we talked about preseason, it's all happening. All the mental implosions. We talked about Draymond Green in last year's series against the Rockets and in the finals not wanting to shoot. That's, guys aren't even, teams are going to get zoned up, or they're going to get 3-second calls because they're not defending him at all. I think the little man is in his head. you know, which is kind of just a hilarious thing to have happen since he's one of the league's biggest crap talkers, as I don't swear, as I'm working on not swearing.
The problem with it, though, if he's not shooting at the end of the day, he's still got, 4 other all-stars on his team.
Well, and that kind of comes back to Michael Malone. I think that he would notice that, and I think he would try to exploit that. Like, especially when you're in such an underdog position and you're just like, I got to do something here.
Yeah.
And then I wonder, aside from the Warriors, and I want to go a little deeper here, they're doing the Kevin Durant isolation stuff, and he's hitting the papers for the internet papers, which is really the blogosphere. But I digress. Like he was complaining about passing the ball, and he was doing it in, I thought, a fair way. There's sometimes overpassing is overpassing. Sometimes isolation play. In fact, the Warriors haven't, when they struggled in the playoffs in past seasons against teams that they could just easily isolate, they didn't, and they overpassed, and it created more problems for them than it solved. So Durant's out there saying that stuff. He's got a point, but that dichotomy, it's starting to become public, where people are finally, I think, realizing that when Kevin Durant does a lot in isolation, it's not necessarily good for the team. And the tension, between the Steph and the Clay side, I think when they're not getting, the types of looks and the type of tempo that they want, and KD's over here getting what he wants, and then Draymond's not shooting, to me, there's the makings of an upset. And can Denver, with some of the firepower that they have defensively, you got Gary Harris, you got Will Barton, I think Torrey Craig would play in a series like that. You got some switchable guys. You have some weird length too. Like a guy like Trey Lyles, terrible defender.
Yeah.
But similarly sized to Kevin Durant. So
right.
And you got Paul Millsap could probably bother him a little bit.
Yeah, I think particularly against the Warriors, that could be a matchup that, even though it seems like Kevin Durant is going to just eat him up, there's something to be said about taking away that 16-foot, turnaround of Kevin Durant's, or when he faces up at that mid-range and just goes over the top. And it just does so much for his confidence, or to get him going if he's missed a couple. So if you can get them, if they're continuing to play in this manner where he just decides for, 10 possessions at a time, that when he gets the ball, it's going up, having a Trey Lyles that can just at least force him to maybe make a move, that can really benefit you. Even if Kevin Durant just decides he's going to put his head down and drive to the bucket, then he doesn't have a chance. But when he's not hitting necessarily, he does like to go to that mid range, and having a guy like Trey, who you have to really shoot over, could be, for a little stretch. We're talking, 3 minutes, if that,
sometimes you just need
kind of
good sized players, to just get in the way. And,
just get in the way.
And actually, Juancho Hernan-Gomez could be a guy that could also do that. And not definitely. I as I look at the Nuggets, where I think they would unravel is, I think Jamal Murray probably wouldn't be ready. He's a guy that he could get red hot and do some things, but I think he would probably get out of his own head, and Steph would get in there. And
the problem with teams like that don't have the experience is when stuff goes bad.
Third quarter at Oracle.
They don't. Yeah, they just don't they don't stick to the plan, and really don't stick to any plan. They get rattled and they think, I'm not playing well, I have to do something. Then you get 5 possessions in a row of 3 or 4 guys making horrible decisions, and then those 5 possessions, a good team comes down and they hit 3 threes, and now instead of 11, you're down 20, and that's the game. So that's where the experienced teams with playoff experience come in. They kind of pull together during bad runs. If they haven't scored in a few possessions, those good teams will get back, and we used to call it, you got to make it like practice. You just got to run a set, run it all the way through, take the best option, the open option, and take the shot and live with the results. The teams that do that, they can stop those 20-2 runs and only make them 14 to 6 runs. So
it'll be really interesting to see what Isaiah Thomas has in the tank. I mean, it's a serious injury; it's kept him out for a while, and he and Michael Malone are real tight. Like there's no pretense there. There's no they're going to be on the same page. And if he's got something in the tank, he's played Steph really tough, and he's been a part of some Celtics teams that would go into Oracle and beat them based on this veteran confidence. Him, Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley, they would get in there and just do their thing. They would have to really pull it together mentally and have consistent offense behind Nikola Jokic, because Jokic, to me, I think in that kind of a series, I think he would have too many moments where he does not initiate, where he passes it up, and they're going to have to play perfectly to even have a chance in that kind of scenario. But I was on a show and I said, somebody's like, well, who would you bet on, in the West other than the Warriors to come out? And it was Denver. And, as we get, if you're betting and it's, 2 months from the playoffs and say Denver's at the 1, 2, or 3 slot still, I would pick them just because I do think they have firepower, and, the things could be clicking enough to have the upset. Though I wouldn't put any money on it because I'm just not going to bet against the Warriors. I'm just not going to do it.
I agree.
Even if Cousins comes in and things get worse.
Yeah, it's still, I mean...
If you give me 10-1, I'll throw a couple shekels on it. But,
right.
Beyond that, no. And I think looking at the East is still where I'm most excited about watching competitive basketball. And really the threat to the Warriors, to me, comes from not Boston anymore. I think Boston has shown me enough to know that I want nothing to do with that. But the Toronto Raptors, and they sit atop the East, and they are just resting guys. They got a couple guys that are getting seriously hurt, or not seriously hurt, but Jonas Valanciunas is gonna be out 4 weeks with a broken thumb. But they get to rest, man. They're resting Kawhi as kind of expected, but all up and down that lineup, if they want a game off, they're taking it, and it's because of their depth, and I think it's gonna pay huge dividends for them as we get deeper into the playoffs. But the Sixers, I didn't expect them to hang around like this. They're 21-12, 3 games out. Toronto at 24-9, real impressive record there. Milwaukee sitting in the 2 slot. They're going to probably fade back if I had to guess. But the Philly 76ers, 21-12, brought in Jimmy Butler. You've had Joel Embiid kind of go off and pout in the corner about his touches and where he's shooting from. Jimmy Butler hasn't been healthy the entire time, but he's back. And, they've thinned out. They're playing Wilson Chandler at power forward, and Mike Muscala, who's gotten a lot tougher in this last season here. I don't know what the story is there, but he used to be a real finesse guy. And I remember talking with Bob Braithwaite, he's a little light in the trunk. And, and he now he's out there and he's just like hacking people and, just crashing the glass, and he's bigger now. And I actually think he can be a nice little change up there at power forward. But they've thinned out, and Markelle Fultz is no longer with them. There's something about players knowing their roles and being relied upon on a night-to-night basis and knowing they're going to get 25, 30 minutes that really brings a team together. And I kind of wonder if that's what's going on here. But now that Jimmy Butler's there, do you have, do you got Philly in that top 3, or are they still on the outside looking in?
I think they're in the top 3. I mean, just out of the, when you have, the playoffs.
You're willing to kick the Bucks out of that top 3?
Yeah, I just don't think they have enough. I like them a lot. I think that they're playing really well. I like what Budenholzer's doing there, and I think Giannis is a beast. But I think that sometimes you just gotta make really tough shots in the playoffs. You just sometimes in the playoffs, there's nothing, no X's and O's. There's just nothing that can be done. Sometimes a guy just has to go in and do something. And I think the more of those guys that you have, the better chances you have to, make a serious push. And I just don't think they have enough of those guys. They're a very, very good team. I don't think it wouldn't shock me if they were able to maybe, stretch a game against the Sixers to 7 games or something like that. But I just think I don't see it. I mean, I like where the Sixers are at. They're something. I mean, I'm not as convinced that they can seriously threaten Toronto, or actually, I don't think that well, I shouldn't say. Boston's playing pretty bad to me, but Toronto, I just don't know that they can get. I think that their depth and all these huge minutes in tight games that these guys on the bench are getting for Toronto, it's just that stuff always pays off at the end of the year. Always, when you go into Golden State without Kawhi Leonard on the back end of a back-to-back and put a beat down on them, I mean that just makes everybody feel like they're an all-star.
Well, and I don't know if you saw the Raptors game against the Pacers. You had Fred VanVleet, who hadn't really hit anything all night, just stepped into a shot confidently and made it. And yeah, these guys are all NBA players, but there's something about that Toronto team, and they're just, from a matchups perspective, they've got so much. And if you can throw Green and Leonard and Siakam, and if you got Serge wound up, if he wants to wind up and play center, and you can match up with the bigs with Jonas Valanciunas, they'll have the DeMarcus Cousins solution right there. I think Valanciunas will outplay Cousins in a series. Just
my worry about the Warriors and Cousins is this: if you have
no, it's just funny. Like it could be anything. Go on.
But if you have one of those guys, like if you have, like Jokic or if Valanciunas, if they're playing well against them, my concern is that DeMarcus Cousins is not going to be like, well, I know that I'm better than them, but I'm going to stay within the team. I'll let him. He can get his, and I know I want to just go at him and isolate one-on-one, but I'm not going to do that because we have a system here. My concern is that he's going to see Kevin Durant isolating. Valanciunas might make a couple of moves on him and score hit 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, and DeMarcus is going to be like, I'm not going to let this guy beat me. Next time I get the ball, I'm going after him. And then you have him isolating, then you have Durant isolating, then you have 4 or 5 possessions in a row. Clay hasn't even touched the ball. So then next time he gets the ball, he's 6 feet behind the line. He just chucks it up. And that's kind of my worry with the Warriors. But I think one of these teams, I don't think Denver can beat them, but they do have a guy that will force DeMarcus Cousins to not only play defense, but will really challenge his ability to stay in his lane. And Toronto also has that with not only with Valanciunas, but I don't know what the heck they're feeding him this year, Ibaka, but it's almost he is an interesting study for a sports psychologist because when he is going, I mean, you're looking, he's sprinting down the court, he's getting boards, he's getting blocks, he's shooting threes, he's putting on the floor, you're like, why don't you? What about you does not make you want to do this every day? It's really amazing.
Well, what's happened is there's so many good players there that I think he's felt the competition, and he statistically he's really outperforming expectations. He's doing everything that you want him to, and again, I think it's also because they can rest guys. He's playing less minutes, so he can go a little bit harder. And it's funny, way off topic, but like Nerlens Noel right now is playing like 10 minutes per game for Oklahoma City, but his steals and blocks are out of control because that dude knows for 10 minutes he gets to just go crazy on a basketball court with no holds barred, and so there's something to that. I can't wait for DeMarcus Cousins to get on the court because there's so many different possibilities of outcomes, and if one of those is just that he goes out there and just plays a focused role player game of staying in the block, and being a beast down low, obviously setting a lot of picks in the pick and roll game because he's just a big guy. I mean, can you imagine trying to get around that guy to block a Stephen Curry 30-footer? That's not going to be easy for the defenders. Right. But he's also going to gum it up if they run pick and roll with him. And whenever he catches the ball, he's got that Mackie Sasser pump fake. Longtime Mets fans know the Mackie Sasser pump fake. Speaking of Markelle Fultz. Like he can't shoot it on the catch. He's got a pump fake and then almost fall over because he's a large man, and then gather and then go, and usually he travels. But like that kind of stuff is going to wreck that offense. So what do they do? And are they, when your locker room, like I think to me it speaks volumes that Draymond was out after the drama and probably injured. Well, definitely injured, but like probably needed the time off, but wasn't a bad time for him and Kevin Durant to have some space.
Sure.
And if those guys are beefing, if Kevin Durant, it's funny, I forget what player came out and said that they thought that Kevin Durant would be in New York. But the players are the first to know. They always are because their agents know. And that's kind of how it all goes down. And so, like, if these guys know, and then it starts unraveling, and then you got DeMarcus Cousins doing crazy, yelling at refs because Draymond's yelling at refs. Like, I could see it unraveling, and I could see them winning while it's unraveling. But it's just going to be fascinating.
The key is going to be what teams do to them early in the playoffs. If they get one of these free passes in the first round, that's where they're going to be on track. So if it's unraveling and they're playing ISO ball and they're yelling and they're getting teed up and this and that, but they still sweep the first round, that's a big time win for them. It's can they see any adversity early to keep the negative things continuing? If they cruise on in to the Western Conference Finals, only having lost 2 games, then forget about it. They're on track and they'll just roll over whoever's in front of them in the Western Conference Finals. But if someone can push them and continue that bad play, because I mean, if they don't have their ducks in a row going into those NBA Finals, and it's Toronto, and if Boston can find themselves, which I don't think they are, I think it's going to be Toronto. They're going to be in some trouble. This Toronto team is no joke.
Yeah, I was just sitting here trying to figure out how do I need to get my bets in, and I want to bet Toronto and Denver, and then hedge it probably. Hopefully hopefully there's a magical equation where I could do those 3 bets, and no matter what, come out okay. And I doubt it, but those are the 3 teams I want to put my money on. It's Toronto, Denver, and Golden State.
And I think this is where, a team like the Lakers can really, if they're one of those teams that the Warriors have to go through early, that they could be one of those teams that kind of keeps their negativity going, because although they're playing, they're just kind of playing average ball. They have their moments. When you look around the league, there's one guy that truly, truly believes he can. Well, there's two guys. There's him. There's Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James are really the only guys that truly, truly believe that they can beat these guys. That have all the confidence in the world that they're going to beat these guys. And I'm sure when LeBron James looks down at the bench that he's got, and he's like, compared to looking over at Osman and all these other guys he had in Cleveland, I'm sure he feels really a lot better about his chances going through a series with the Warriors. So that would be something that I'm sure that the Warriors are not going to want to deal with.
Well, and
I don't think that they have a chance of beating them.
They're the other interesting team, and I mean the Lakers probably deserve their own podcast because they're probably going to change a few times, before the end of the year, and you got all the free agency talk going on, and they're playing with house money. Like I don't think they expect to compete this year. Nobody, I don't think, around the team expects them to compete this year. But they do have the guy, and they do have, better teammates for the guy than he had in Cleveland. They don't have a Kyrie Irving, though. That was the difference maker. They don't have a
Kyrie. That was a difference maker. But I mean, just compared to last year's team, I mean, I'm feel a lot more comfortable if I was LeBron, having a Kuzma and an Ingram over J.R. Smith,
I think they do change. I mean, there's so much that can happen. I'm hopeful that this year's trade deadline has a little bit more pop than in the years past. Because Lakers have assets that, to me, Brandon Ingram is not going to be a Laker in 2 years.
I find it hard to believe that he'll go through another offseason. I don't know if he's got to play more consistently so they can get a better chip for him, but I can't imagine. I think in the off season for sure, they're going to find him to exit because he just doesn't shoot consistently enough. He's a
perfect piece to dangle out there if you're going to try to get an Anthony Davis or you're going to try to get somebody else. A lot of interesting stuff going on right there. Enough to fill a podcast. The Wizards, though, we want to go to Washington. We want to talk about this trade. Really, one of the most hilarious things that happened on Twitter in a little bit. The Suns, the Grizzlies, and the Wizards, who really are three of the most dysfunctional teams in the league, you get together to do this deal, and now all of them are pointing fingers at the other guys. Basically, they had a deal in place that was going to send Kelly Oubre to Memphis, Austin Rivers, and the hang-up was over a Brooks brother to go to Phoenix. And what ended up happening was Phoenix thought they were getting Dillon Brooks. Memphis thought they were sending Marshawn Brooks. And the whole thing was hilarious because Phoenix has all these wings. They didn't need two more wings. The Phoenix Suns had so many chuckers. They have so many chuckers. It's like watching a Phoenix Suns basketball game is so hard. You got Josh Jackson out there just... He takes the worst shots in the league, and it's not even close. And he's taking the fourth most shots on the team. You got Devin Booker out there doing his thing, so it's ugly. And Washington is giving up a good young asset because they feel like they can't sign him. And they're also trying to quell their locker room issues. And Trevor Ariza played with both John Wall and Bradley Beal. So they're giving up a good asset for a bad one, so they can bottom feed at best in the playoffs. It's and the guy who's making the deal can't even get the name right, because I think most people think that Ernie Grunfeld, GM of the Washington Wizards, botched this somehow and didn't know who was getting traded, and he was the go-between between the two other teams. And it's even Memphis. It's funny because Memphis was going to get Kelly Oubre,
right?
And I'm sorry, all due respect to Dillon Brooks, who's kind of a cult hero in Memphis, for being a young rookie that got a lot of minutes and didn't suck.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kelly Oubre is pretty good.
He's a lot better.
He's somebody you want to try.
Yeah, big step up from Brooks. And who I like, I mean, Brooks is a pro. He's going to have a nice, he'll be in the league for, 8-10 years. He's a pro, but Kelly Oubre is a good player, really good young player. This is a terrible deal. I mean, what the hell? Like this idea that, and I'm a Laker guy. I love Trevor Ariza. Okay. But this idea that just a random role player could come into a locker room that's dysfunctional, like he didn't help Phoenix at all.
He was terrible. It was funny in Phoenix. He tried to be Michael Jordan. And so when you had all those chuckers and Trevor Ariza trying to break guys down off the dribble, and when he couldn't get anywhere, he'd just pass the ball out, meekly. Like he did this every time he got the ball, and yeah, he was fat. He was fat for the first week of the season. I mean, he played his way into shape.
But that was something that you were depending on when you went to Phoenix. It's like, this guy's going to come in shape. He's going to teach these guys how to be pros. He's going to teach them how to play within the system. He did none of that. He did absolutely none of that.
And he got paid. That dude got paid, man.
Yes. And then they send him over to Washington, which I don't know what you'd rather have. I don't know if you'd rather have dysfunctional young guys who you could possibly still have a chance of molding, or dysfunctional old guys who aren't changing. Now you throw them in there. I mean, I like, leadership, in sports, and every sport does this. They talk, oh, this guy's a leader. He's a leader, blah, blah, blah. Guys got to want to be led. Like, look at, Michael Jordan. Oh, he's a great leader. He had Steve Kerr on his team. He had Bill Cartwright on his team. He had Pete Meyer. Yeah, he's had coaches, guys that want to be led. Horace Grant. I mean, this whole leadership thing is so overblown. And to think that a Trevor Ariza is going to go in there and so he's going to sit John Wall down and be like, hey, buddy, maybe you shouldn't go out tonight. Like, come on. What's he gonna do? Like, I mean, come on.
You know why? Because it's a sports writer thing. Sports writers think that they're living in the movie Hoosiers.
Yeah,
and they really identify with it. They really identify with it, and it's just this convenient tool. Like if you're a bad team, you bring in a veteran, you talk about veteran leadership. They do it in Sacramento. It's terrible. Like Zach Randolph, great guy. Really, really not kidding. Like, around the team, he's a good guy. He's good to talk to. But that guy screwed their team up so bad, like on the floor by not being a good veteran leader. By taking a bunch of bad shots out of the flow of the offense, being a me guy. And they all sucked as a result of it. And now, because that guy's no longer there, all these players are doing well. Shocker, and it's just this tired trope of veteran leadership. And what does it do? It's like, no, people play basketball. And yes, you can have a good veteran leader. It's not like they're impossible to have or find.
Right.
It's just probably about a third of the ones that we're talking about like that actually fit the description. Right. And so Ariza comes in. He got 38 minutes in his first game, then 36 minutes in his next back-to-back, by the way, game. They lost both of them. And I'm sitting there just cracking up. Scott Brooks, I think is in a tough spot here, but I don't have a lot of, I'm not going to shed too many tears because we've seen his playbook. He will, like a lot of coaches, give minutes to guys that, the players want to see have minutes. And he did it with Kendrick Perkins. If Trevor Ariza is going to be the guy to patch up the locker room, he's going to get the minutes. And he's already said that Ariza is the starter, which makes Otto Porter's role and contract all of a sudden stand out like a sore thumb. Porter's been out with a hip injury, which Porter's had this hip injury for 3 years now. He seems to be the odd man out. You could put a lineup together where you've got, Ariza and Porter, and now you're this kind of small ball, lengthy, lanky sort of a unit. And the problem, though, is that Jeff Green is the other guy who's been the veteran leader,
Right.
who's been holding that locker room together to his credit. He's been pro Brooks, and no surprise, Jeff Green has been getting a lot of minutes.
Right.
He's their center now, and Markieff Morris is the other guy they're playing at center. Now, there's a guy named Thomas Bryant who is their only tall player on the roster.
Because Dwight Howard's injured again. Shocker.
Dwight Howard's hurt. Jan Mahimi can barely stay on the floor. And, so I wonder, like, are they going to give this kid minutes? And, I've picked him up in fantasy leagues as a result because my thought process is basically this. You can't play Jeff Green at center all year. You can't play Markieff Morris at center all year. But that seems to be the plan there in Washington. They're giving Bryant like 18 minutes a game. I mean, so they can't survive on that, right?
Right.
I mean,
this whole thing you want to talk about a dysfunction. Like you just mentioned Otto Porter and his awful contract, and you just get rid of a really good young player. Do they make that trade simply because they know that you're going to have to pay Oubre, and have they just reconciled to the fact that there's no possible way they could ever get rid of John Wall?
Yeah, that's in the John Wall contract was this is the super max, because he got all NBA.
Yep.
And in the year before his contract came up, and it's hilarious that I think the league has recognized to some degree that there is a cap on what you want to pay guys, because guys that approach the supermax are getting, they're not getting, and that's the nexus of the Kawhi Leonard stuff is San Antonio wasn't sure that they wanted to give him the supermax. That's probably why he sat out a year, and that's intriguing. If you're Washington, you fought hard to keep Otto Porter. I was for that deal, but it's funny that the league got so top heavy with the Warriors and not enough contending teams that money dried up around the league.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden those $20 million deals from the first and second year of the CBA, or the non-smoothing deals, I should say, they stand out right now because nobody else really has these big deals except a handful of players. Otto Porter's deal stands out. I still think, though, he was movable. I'm pretty sure the Kings would have been in on that. And
right.
So, and that would have been an intriguing fit for them. But so you could move Otto Porter, keep Kelly Oubre, not go for Trevor Ariza, go long term with John Wall. Say, hey man, whatever you got to do to get your head right, we're going to be together for a while here. Let's get this figured out. But not this hitting of the panic button and bringing in Trevor Ariza. Hopefully it works for them in the short term, because I like the Wizards when they're decent. I don't like the dysfunction of it's hard because Washington Wizards fans have been through this a lot. I have a fan base in Sacramento that's experiencing the other side of that, where they're fun to watch. They're not too crazy. I mean, they're still crazy, but they're just like, I think if you're near 500 and you're crazy, or they're actually over 500, 31 games in, it just sucks for those fan bases when they keep going through that stuff. I feel like Washington's going to keep going through that. And then on the other side of that trade, you have the Phoenix Suns, who have been like my running joke for the last 2 years. I found a Suns blogger who wrote a good story about my guy Rashawn Holmes, and I wanted to promote it, and the dude had me blocked. I don't follow him. I don't even know who this guy is, and he had me blocked. And it was like really weird to know that somebody he's like preemptively blocking me, and it's because of the shat that I've talked about the Suns for the last 2 years. For things like letting Derek Jones Jr. go. Derek Jones Jr. is now playing big minutes for the Heat and looking like one of those, holy crap, look at this guy can jump through the gym and do some stuff. The Suns, somehow in this deal, they sort of lucked into a good situation because they brought back Kelly Oubre and and Austin Rivers in the deal. Instead of keeping Austin Rivers, which would have been a very Suns thing to do because they've been looking for ball handlers, they've brought Jamal Crawford in, which didn't really make sense to a whole lot of folks. That's another veteran leadership guy, by the way. Crawford, loved around the league, 39 years old, I think, and still taking bad jump shots. And you got to wonder, like, how does that teach the guy, who's in his first year, what a good shot is and isn't. Great guy, though.
Right.
They're bringing all these shooters in, bringing all these ball handlers in, and then they turn away Austin Rivers, and it was almost as if they said to him, look, you don't get any minutes here. And that's, granted, if you hold on to Austin Rivers and if you hold on to Tyson Chandler longer, you could trade those expiring contracts for something of value. But they let Tyson Chandler walk, and then they let Austin Rivers walk, and maybe they'll get some goodwill around the league for being friendly to players, and not stringing these things out. And Lord knows they need that.
Yes.
It's been a bit of a mess there for a while. They've won 4 straight, and I was looking at their squad the other day. They had Booker on the floor. I want to say they had Melton, but maybe they were running without him. They had Oubre, they had Mikal Bridges, they had either Ayton or Holmes on the floor. Holmes is having a spectacular season, by the way. Like, if you're a basketball team out there and you want to just make a move that's going to just change the dynamic of your team, you can go get Richaun Holmes probably for cheap. He's out there basically changing the game when he's on the floor for 20 minutes per game. It's phenomenal to watch. And then he's pushing DeAndre Ayton, who's been a little less lethargic lately because everybody knows about Holmes now. Holmes is pushing him. He's played for him in the fourth quarter in crunch time. So Ayton's out there a little bit more energetic. But you look at that roster when you got Booker and some low-usage guys, low-usage athletes, and Bridges and Oubre, and you throw in another high-usage player like Ayton. If you add a point guard to Ayton, Bridges, Oubre, Booker, and a point guard, I think you're starting something there. And I like their balance with the 2 centers, to have Richaun Holmes come off the bench, play 20 minutes. I personally think he's the better player than Ayton, and all y'all can hit me up. I don't care. But they're starting to look a little interesting there, and that's crazy when they're the 15th team in the Western Conference. Now they've won 4 games straight. It is half of their win total, but am I selling you at all with this Phoenix Suns bit, or am I just crazy?
Well, they're terrible. 4 wins is nice, and it's not against chump teams either. So that's nice. They won the trade. I mean, they got a good young player in Oubre, so I think that they definitely won that trade. You're right about the talent and the possibilities there. You're absolutely right on that.
TJ Warren was the other player I forgot to mention.
Warren's Chucky McChuckerson. He's
Chucky McChuckerson, but he's hitting 50% of his threes right now, which is crazy. He's taken a lot of them, but he's kind of, on a young team, he's a veteran guy that right now makes them pretty good. I would, if I could move him though for a point guard.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Man.
The thing about them is, yes, they have there's talent, but it's not it can be like the guys you mentioned. Yes, your plan is great. Your plan is great, but it's the Suns. Do any of those guys that you mentioned, when they look around and when they're playing well, like during this 4-game win streak, they're like, yeah, I like this. This could work. None of them actually think that this is going to be the roster next year. In order to move forward with this kind of talent and a team, you actually have to sell everybody that, one, this is a good thing, and two, that you're going to stick with it. So I just don't. The Suns haven't shown me anything that would lead you to believe that this is actually something that they're gonna put in motion and stay with.
Sarver is the problem here. Like, Sarver can mess this up.
Yeah.
Like, James Jones is in there in sort of an assistant GM capacity, which is nice because he has a pipeline to LeBron and he has a pipeline to... No, I'm not talking about LeBron people, but he has a pipeline to LeBron, Maverick Carter, you know, the who's who of the league. So maybe he can make something happen there. Sarver's the one that can get in there and screw everything up, even if they do everything perfectly. I just saw that lineup, and you could take Warren in. You could put Warren in the lineup. You could take him out. I think it was Booker, though. I think it was Booker, Warren, and the two low usage guys, and Mikal Bridges and Kelly Oubre, and then pick a center. And I thought, you know, this is a team that can cover. They can score. You know, Bridges and Oubre still have a lot of work to do. But, you know, you start to think of the young athletic league and, you know, what a team would need, and it kind of looks like that.
Who's your guy? Find me a point guard for that mix.
That's what I'm really struggling. You know, a lot of people want to talk about Kemba Walker, and I don't like the fit there. You got two. Okay, like with my question about Ayton is he going to learn how to make players better around him offensively? Because if he's not, then his ceiling is really capped.
I don't think so. I think he, at best case scenario, is he focuses on his motor. He's a finisher. He's either gonna, you know, knock down his jumper, and if he could have one move and a counter move on the block, that's your best case scenario. Maybe he becomes a 20-point per game scorer at some point. But he's not a guy that, I mean, if he's going against you, I think that you're going to be able to double team him and get the ball out of his hands. He's not going to really be able to make the right pass out of double teams that can hurt teams. I just don't see it. So yeah, I think his cap is pretty low. I don't really know. I like what you're saying. I just can't think of a guy. I would think actually your boy in Sacramento, the kid from Kansas, I think would actually be a nice fit.
Oh, you know, that guy, he's hilarious. You're talking about Frank Mason. He had this funny ass, like he got off the plane or the bus in Cleveland and he was talking about the snow. I highly recommend it. It didn't get as much airplay because it was really weird and it was just like 10 seconds. It didn't have that pop that a lot of internet memes have. Highly recommend you go just try to find that. And he's struggled this year, but you know, there's a couple names that pop up, and they've actually popped up in, you know, Twitter or whatever. But like Spencer Dinwiddie, and the Nets did a smart thing there, getting him signed up, and that's actually a movable deal. I don't know when he's eligible to be traded. Pretty sure it's right away. I'm not the CBA buff that a lot of other folks on the internet are, but he would be a pretty good fit. You're trying to figure out who would play well next to Devin Booker, but a guy that I think would be attainable and would solve a problem for the Indiana Pacers. And it's not Tyreek Evans. That's the guy that I think would, you know, they would like to get rid of. It's Corey Joseph. He could come in, low usage guy, you know, tough, and you know, slasher. Could play off of Devin Booker, but they got to get somebody that can teach that guy what a good rhythm shot is, because it is really hard to watch.
Just somebody that can run an offense. I mean, it's not like people know what a good shot is. It's just people just take bad shots. I don't think that if you sat down in a film session with Devin Booker, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's a good shot." He just takes them because he doesn't care. And no one's telling him not to. It's not like you. Everyone knows if you're 4 feet behind the line and there's a guy with his hand in your face and there's 15 seconds left on the shot clock, you know damn good well it's a bad shot.
I got more names, man. You know, another one that would be good and is basically on the block is Patrick Beverley. Would be a good one.
I don't like that at all. Mm-hmm. I don't like that at all for this group. No? Because he's too much. Like he's too much fire for a team like that. and he wouldn't have the backing of the organization and the coaching staff to come in and start kicking ass, it would just wouldn't be a good. I like if you're talking about just the player profile, I see where you're going with it, but him specifically, I just don't see that working. I think that it would tear the locker room into even tinier shreds. It would be so. It'd be so obvious that those guys don't like each other. It would be good drama, but I don't think it would work.
They need a defender is what they need, because when I see Devin Booker, I'm thinking long term, especially as people try to project Devin Booker as a top tier player in this league. He can't slide his feet for nothing, and you're gonna have to have a point guard next to him that can really move. And you know what? Maybe it is DeAnthony Melton. I mean, I think that's the guy that they really got to get behind and try to develop. He's got that athletic build that could, project to be an NBA level point guard. Elliot Kobo is a little bit small for me, and he's got some pretty good skills and could possibly be a decent player in the league at some point. But they got to have somebody that can really slide their feet. That's why Corey Joseph is interesting to me. It probably won't happen because Goran Dragic's knee injury, but like Tyler Johnson has been somebody the Heat have been wanting to get rid of for some time. He could be interesting. Beyond that, though, the list is really, really thin. I don't see anybody that I would throw on that team. Maybe somebody like Derek White. He's really struggled, though. It's thin pickings out there finding a player next to Devin Booker, but I like what they're doing.
I don't mind like Derek. I think would be like, I'm not as concerned about the struggles of some of these young players just because they're young players. Like they're just, there's going to be these stretches where they struggle. I think that you're looking more towards like Derek White, Mason Dinwiddie, all those guys. It's really their character too, which is a big piece of this. It's the player profile, and it's their character, how they are in the locker room, what they do on the floor. Not so much the consistency as much as knowing who they are as players and sticking with it. That's going to be the key for whoever a team like them whoever they bring in. But as long as dude still owns the team, I mean, I'm sorry. There's those, I hate to break it to some of these, all those Knicks fans and Phoenix fans, your owners suck, and your team will never be good as long as those guys own your team. Sorry.
There's something.
I hate to break it to you. We can all play fantasy GM here as much as we want, and even when they make good moves, your owners are terrible.
You said something in there that made sense. Know who you are and stick to it. That's some wise words there by the cause, and that's going to do it for the show, man. So aside from Christmas, it looks like we'll have a show, the following week?
Yeah. So what are we? Christmas is, next, what's Christmas?
Christmas is on Tuesday, so we'll have a pocket of Friday where we will either try to get a show or we will shoot for the next week. Kind of on an every other week schedule here with the show during the holiday season.
Next Friday work, I'm sure. When's New Year's?
It's also on Tuesday, so a lot of people getting that 15-day vacation where they take basically today or yesterday off, ride through the weekend. Monday's Christmas Eve, can't work then. Got Christmas on Tuesday, and then a 3-day week after that. Can't really work on the 26th because it's so close to Christmas, so you might as well take those other 2 days off, followed by New Year's Eve on the 30th, which is a Monday, and New Year's Eve or New Year's Day on a Tuesday, so you can't really work on the 2nd. I mean, that's just so close to New Year's. So people might as well take those next 2 days off as well. And I know that's not realistic for a lot of our folks, but I'm seeing it out there and I'm jealous. So
but there's a good attempt. There's a good attempt by our folks to make that happen. You should be trying to.
If you could make that plan happen, then just remember you heard it here first. Follow us online at www.hoop-ball.com. You can pick up the Hoop Ball Radio app. You can also check out our sponsor, who, if you're looking for a last-second Christmas gift, Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. Go online. You can order off Amazon. It's a really smart Christmas gift. Instead of getting that that Starbucks gift card, getting some burnt Christmas coffee that's no good. You get some real coffee with Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee. And you could also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/KOZANDBRU show, where we are about 172 days without a post, if I'm correct. And on Twitter, twitter.com/KOZANDBRU show, where you can tweet at us all day long. Another one's in the books. Peace.
You are listening to the Cause and Brew Show.